picture this for a second. You wake up tomorrow morning, you pour your coffee, and you check your phone.
Right.
And sitting right there in your inbox is a notification of a massive business-ending lawsuit.
Oh, man. That is the ultimate nightmare.
Or, maybe it's a sudden, really aggressive audit from SARS. Or perhaps your biggest supplier just went into liquidation and they are dragging your operations down with them.
Which happens all the time, yeah.
It really does. So if any of those scenarios hit you today, would your personal wealth, the money you've bled for, your family home, your investments, would it actually survive?
It's a terrifying question to ask yourself.
Mm.
And for an alarming number of South African entrepreneurs, the honest answer is just no.
Right.
Everything they have built is sitting right there, completely exposed. Because people will spend decades relentlessly generating income, right? But they spend almost zero time actually protecting the wealth that the income creates.
Which is an incredibly dangerous way to operate. So today's deep dive is fundamentally about defense. We are exploring how to build an impenetrable wall around your hard-earned wealth by leveraging South African trust structures.
It's such a vital topic.
It really is. And we've pulled together two incredible sources for this. First, a comprehensive legal breakdown titled A Blueprint for Effective South African Trust Deeds. And second, we are analyzing the professional methodology of Lumka Sturman.
Yes, she is brilliant.
She's a premier South African trust consultant and asset protection specialist. We're looking at her work to see how these legal theories are actually implemented in the real world.
It really is the perfect pairing for a deep dive like this, because the blueprint gives us the rigorous legal theory, right? The strict parameters set by the Trust Property Control Act and the Master of the High Court.
Right, the heavy legal stuff.
Exactly. And then looking at Lumka Sturman's framework, it shows us how those laws are actively applied to insulate entrepreneurs from total financial disaster.
Yeah, but before we get into the heavy legal paperwork, we need to understand the root of the problem. And the problem usually starts with how people hold their assets.
Oh, absolutely.
You see so many business owners holding highly valuable properties in their own personal names, or they have a single trading company that owns all their physical assets, but that exact same company is the one signing high-risk contracts and taking on debt.
Yeah, they are entirely mixing personal liability with business liability.
Exactly.
It's essentially tying your life jacket to an anchor. If the business sinks, it just pulls everything else down with it. Lumka Sturman's methodology tackles this head-on with a concept she calls the asset protection fortress.
The fortress! I love that.
Right. And the golden rule of this fortress is profound in its simplicity. It's just this: your trust owns the assets and your company carries the risk.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to make sure you, the listener, can really visualize how these mechanics work.
Yeah, a good visualization helps a lot here.
Think of your business operations as a knight fighting in a medieval arena. That knight is out there in the dirt, taking on the massive risks, swinging the sword, fighting off lawsuits, signing commercial leases, dealing with aggressive creditors.
Leaving all the hits.
Taking all the hits. That knight is your trading company. But your wealth, the gold, the family estate, the legacy investments, that shouldn't be strapped to the knight in the middle of a brutal battle.
Definitely not.
No, that wealth should be safely locked away in a fortified castle up on a hill, just observing the fight from afar. And the castle, in this case, is your trust.
I love that analogy. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the legal beauty of that separation is that if the knight gets defeated in the arena, say, if your company is liquidated, the creditors cannot march up the hill and seize the castle.
Because they're totally separate.
Exactly. They are entirely separate legal entities.
But wait, the sources mention benefits far beyond just dodging creditors, right? There's a massive systemic advantage here regarding estate planning, specifically when someone passes away. The blueprint talks about bypassing the Master of the High Court.
Yes, that is huge.
How does that actually work? Like, why do we need to bypass them in the first place?
So this is where the structural genius of a trust really shines. When a person dies in South Africa, their personal estate is effectively put on pause. The Master of the High Court steps in and freezes your personal bank accounts.
Freezes everything.
Everything. And why? To ensure that all your debts, executor fees, and estate duties are paid off before your heirs see a single cent.
Wow.
The winding up process can take months, sometimes even years. I've seen families left entirely destitute, unable to pay for groceries or school fees, while millions of rands are just locked in a frozen estate.
That is horrifying. I mean, truly. So how does the castle fix that?
Because a trust doesn't die. It is a continuous legal entity. If the trust owns the capital, your family's access to those funds is never interrupted by your passing. The trustees just continue managing the assets for the beneficiaries.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. And furthermore, you are fundamentally minimizing estate duty. If you buy a property in your own name for 2 million rand, and it grows in value to 20 million rand by the time you die, your estate is taxed on that massive 18 million rand growth.
Ouch.
Big ouch. But if the trust buys the property, all that capital appreciation happens inside the trust. It's pegged outside of your personal estate.
Okay, so the benefits are undeniable. This is what ultra-wealthy families have done for generations, and now smart entrepreneurs are realizing they need to do the exact same thing, but how do you actually build this castle?
You can't just wish it into existence, that's for sure.
Right, you can't just stand on a hill and shout into the void that a trust exists. It requires a foundational document. The blueprint calls it the constitution of your fortress, the trust deed.
The trust deed is everything. In South African law, a trust is entirely a creature of its founding document. You have to separate this from how you think about regular companies.
How so?
Well, companies are governed by the Companies Act. If you register a standard Pleiadi Ltd, there is a massive legal framework that automatically fills in the operational blanks for you.
Ah.
Trusts do not have that safety net. Courts and the Master of the High Court interpret trust deeds with ruthless strictness. If your trust deed does not explicitly authorize a specific action, the trustees simply cannot do it.
Hold on, wait. I was looking at the actual rules in the Master's Office guidelines while prepping for this, and it says you can legally establish a trust with a founding contribution of just 100 rand. 100 rand. That's the price of a cup of coffee. How does the court look at a 100 rand piece of paper and agree that it legally protects a 20 million rand business empire? I don't buy it. That sounds like a technical loophole a judge would laugh out of court.
It trips up a lot of people, I know, but it's actually a very strict mechanical process. The 100 rand isn't the wealth, it's merely the ignition switch.
The ignition switch.
Exactly. A trust cannot legally exist in a vacuum. It must hold some initial property to be constituted. So the founder, the person establishing it, transfers a nominal 100 rand to the trustees just to turn the engine on.
Okay, so if the 100 rand is just the ignition switch, how does the actual gold get into the castle without triggering a massive tax bill? Because if I just give my trust 20 million rand, SARS is going to hit me with a 20% donations tax, right?
Precisely. Which is why the transfer of real wealth happens later through highly structured mechanisms, most commonly sophisticated loan accounts.
Oh, loans.
Yes, you, the founder, legally loan the trust the money to buy the asset. The trust now owes you that initial capital amount. You hold the loan as a personal asset, but, and this ties back to our earlier point, the growth of the property happens inside the trust.
And the loan itself.
You can slowly write off that loan over time using your annual 100,000 rand tax-free donation allowance.
Wow. That is brilliant. It's like a slow drip.
It is. But none of that complex maneuvering works if the trust deed isn't drafted perfectly from day one.
Right, because of the strict rules.
Exactly. The deed must establish the exact name, the date of establishment, identify the founder, and meticulously detail the specific powers. If your deed doesn't explicitly give the trustees the power to borrow money, or invest in offshore shares, or run a commercial business, they are legally paralyzed.
So even if an investment makes perfect financial sense?
Even then, if the power isn't in the deed, doing it is a breach of trust.
So the deed is the unyielding architectural blueprint of the castle. But once the walls are up and the gold is safely inside and growing, who actually gets to live in the castle? Who gets the gold? This brings us to a crucial legal distinction in the sources, which is the beneficiaries.
Right. Identifying beneficiaries requires a very delicate balance between certainty and flexibility. The blueprint outlines two main categories. First, you have named beneficiaries.
Like specific people.
Yes, this is highly rigid. Think John Smith and Mary Smith. If circumstances change, say Mary passes away or John has a new child, a deed with only named beneficiaries might require a complex, expensive legal amendment to update.
Which sounds like a nightmare to manage over decades.
It is a complete headache. That's why modern deeds often use class beneficiaries. This is a descriptive category, like the founder's descendants.
Oh, nice.
It's highly flexible because it automatically captures future grandchildren and great-grandchildren without ever needing to alter the paperwork.
Yeah.
But for asset protection, the most vital mechanism is understanding the difference between a vested interest and a discretionary interest.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because this distinction is the absolute secret sauce of asset
Oh,
protection.
absolutely.
Think of a vested interest like a salary you were legally owed by an employer. You did the work. The money is legally yours. It is a fixed entitlement. But because it is legally yours, if you personally go bankrupt, your creditors can step in and say, hey, that salary belongs to us now. They can seize it.
Exactly, because it is an asset in your personal estate.
Right. But a discretionary trust operates completely differently. It's not an employer paying a salary. It's like a family grant committee.
A grant committee, yes.
You are on a list of people who might get money, but you have zero legal guarantee to any specific amount. The committee, the trustees, hold all the power. They decide if, when, and exactly how much you get.
And the beauty of that is,
Because you do not legally own that payout until the exact moment the trustees resolve to give it to you, your creditors cannot touch it. You can't seize what someone doesn't legally own.
that is the core mechanism of the asset protection fortress.
Hmm.
The beneficiaries are merely potential recipients. They have a hope of receiving a benefit, not a right to one.
It's so smart.
But the discretionary structure isn't just a defensive shield. It's an offensive tool for extreme tax efficiency. We call it the conduit principle.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah.
Because the trustees have discretion, they can pick and choose who gets the income based on tax bracket.
Exactly. If the trust generates R1,000,000 in profit, the trustees don't have to keep it in the trust. They can distribute it strategically.
Give me an example.
Okay, so if one beneficiary is a highly successful CEO paying the maximum 45% income tax, and another beneficiary is an 18-year-old university student with zero income, the trustees can distribute funds directly to the student to pay for their living expenses and tuition.
And because of the conduit principle, that income is taxed in the hands of the student at their much lower marginal tax rate.
You've got it. It legally and significantly minimizes the overall tax burden for the family unit. The structural and financial advantages are just undeniable.
It sounds like the ultimate financial superpower, honestly. But reading through the sources, they highlight a fatal trap, a massive flaw that routinely destroys South African trusts. And it really comes down to human nature. It's founders who build this beautiful fortress, but then they absolutely refuse to let go of the keys.
Yes. What's fascinating here is how often this happens. We're talking about the alter ego trust. This is where the entire protective architecture collapses. South African courts have drawn a very hard line on this, specifically in a landmark ruling Land and Agricultural Development Bank of South Africa v. Parker.
The famous Parker case. What exactly happened there?
So, the court established that a trust must have genuine functional independence. Think of a trust like a theatrical stage set. From the audience's perspective, from the view of creditors and the law, it looks like a solid, independent castle.
Right.
But if SARS or a judge walks backstage and sees the founder pulling all the levers, writing the scripts, using the trust bank account to buy their personal groceries, and completely ignoring formal trustee meetings.
The illusion is broken.
Exactly, the illusion is broken. The court will declare it an alter ego trust. They will, in legal terms, pierce the veneer of the trust.
And when they pierce that veneer, the theatrical set falls down. The trust is essentially invalidated. Suddenly, your creditors can seize the assets as if they were in your personal name.
It's a disaster.
And SARS. The sources note that income retained in a trust is taxed at a flat punishing rate of 45%, and trusts are subject to an effective capital gains tax rate of 36%. If you lose your protective structure, those numbers are devastating.
They will wipe out a family's generational wealth in a single audit.
So what does this all mean? If I build this trust to protect my life's work, do I seriously just have to hand all my wealth over to strangers and hope they do a good job? Because as a self-made entrepreneur, that sounds terrifying. I want to control my assets.
And that tension is exactly what traps people. But South African law provides a very elegant solution. You absolutely do not have to hand your wealth to strangers.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yet you, as the founder, can be a trustee. You can be deeply involved in the daily management of the investments. But to prevent the courts from seeing it as your personal piggy bank, the law requires the appointment of an independent trustee.
So someone entirely unconnected.
Yes, they cannot be a family member. They cannot be financially dependent on you. They cannot be a fellow shareholder in your trading company. They must be an objective outsider who genuinely understands trust law and actively participates in the decisions.
Which makes sense.
But business owners constantly view this as a loss of control, and they need to reframe it. That independent trustee isn't a restriction. They are a required layer of armor. They are the objective proof to SARs in the courts that your trust is a legally valid, separate entity. Their signature on the resolutions is what keeps the fortress walls standing.
Okay, looking at all these tripwires, the strict wording of the deed, the specific powers, the loan accounts, the Parker case, the independent trustee requirement, it becomes incredibly obvious why downloading a generic 500 Rand trust template off the internet is a disaster waiting to happen.
Oh, please don't do that.
You don't just need a Word document, you need a strategic architect.
Which is where the specialized expertise of someone like Lemke Sturman becomes indispensable. The sources outline the very common problems that destroy DIY trusts. Vague beneficiary definitions, where no one knows if legally adopted children are included. Inadequate powers, where trustees literally aren't allowed to sign a guarantee for a business loan. And rigid deeds that can't adapt to annual changes in tax legislation.
So many traps.
A professional trust consultant audits your specific business risks, your unique family dynamics, and engineers a structure that bridges the gap between your goals and what the courts demand.
And looking objectively at Lemke Sturman's methodology, it's fascinating to see how she actually quantifies and structures this process for her clients. It's not just abstract advice. She breaks it down into distinct logical phases.
She does.
For instance, she starts with a foundation audit priced around 25,970 Rand. This is an exposure risk analysis. She's basically stress testing your current setup to find the cracks in your armor before building the actual trust.
It's a vital diagnostic step. You have to map out where the business liabilities currently intersect with the personal assets. Once the risk is diagnosed, she moves to the asset protection blueprint session, which is around 39,990 Rand.
And that's where the building happens.
Exactly. This is the actual architecture phase. It maps out the exact flow of assets, formally separates the personal wealth from the business risk, and custom drafts the trust deed and company structures to align perfectly. It is the practical, legal execution of separating the knight from the castle.
And crucially, looking at her framework, there is an annual maintenance phase at 47,900 Rand a year, which, after discussing the Parker case, makes complete sense. A trust is not a set it and forget it PDF on your hard drive.
Not at all. If you aren't holding minuted meetings, if your independent trustee isn't signing off on annual financial resolutions, if your SARS compliance lapses, you are practically begging the courts to declare it an alter ego trust.
Right.
That annual maintenance is the ongoing proof that the trust is alive, functioning, and independent.
It's essentially paying to keep the veneer thick and the fortress walls reinforced. If you are an entrepreneur generating real income and you want to ensure your legacy survives lawsuits, liquidations, and audits, reviewing these frameworks is essential. You can check out her website. It's www.lemkosturman.com.
Highly recommend it.
It's incredibly educational just to see how top-tier asset protection is properly engineered.
The difference between hoping your family is protected and legally knowing they are protected is monumental. The architecture is complex, yes, but the peace of mind it provides allows business owners to focus entirely on growth, knowing their downside is capped.
Absolutely. So let's bring this all together. Your business, your trading company, is the aggressive engine that protects and generates your income. But a meticulously drafted, independently managed trust is what protects your wealth.
Beautifully summarized.
Understanding the mechanics of your trust deed, respecting the independence of the trustees, and working with an expert consultant are the ultimate insurance policies for your life's work. They guarantee that when your knight takes a heavy hit in the arena, your castle on the hill remains entirely untouched.
It is a brilliant defensive strategy.
Yeah.
But I want to leave everyone with a slightly different perspective to ponder.
Oh, okay.
We spent this entire deep dive talking about protecting financial assets, outsmarting creditors, and mitigating legal risk. But consider this. If your trustee dictates how your wealth is managed, who gets funded, and under what conditions distributions are made for the next 100 years, you aren't just writing a financial document.
What are you writing?
You are essentially writing a behavioral script for great-grandchildren you will never even meet. Beyond just preserving the money, what personal values, what work ethics, and what conditions are you implicitly encoding into that legal document for the next century?
Wow. That is a heavy, profound thought to leave on. It's not just about the gold, it's about the rules of the castle. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a hard look at your exposure, start reinforcing your fortress today, and we will catch you on the next one.